What I'd like to do, and thank you for making your time available, is just run through a quick update on where the company is at. We'll break from time to time for questions, and hopefully we can answer all your requests. So, as a quick reminder, as a copper-focused company, we're in a pretty good space at the minute in a copper market that totals around 22 million tonnes per annum, growing at a compound rate of about 2% per annum. So the quick maths on that is that there needs to be around 400,000 tonnes of new production per year just to satisfy the demand in the copper market. And as you've probably heard Tony Menini say a number of times, particularly in the recent past, we suspect, and it's not only the Asiamet's view, but the general view, about to move into sort of a supply deficit situation in 2018, 2019. So in that context, you've seen an improvement in the copper price, which is fantastic, and I suppose we've been suggesting that for some time. But in that environment, we've been pushing ahead with the projects, trying to add value where we can for the best value, progressing through the year of 2017. So that's sort of the macro environment. As you recall recently, we had a resource upgrade at our flagship project, BKM, not so long ago, where the resource, and I'll talk in tonnes, metric tonnes, because that's a little easier, has increased to about 30,000 tonnes to 430,000 tonnes contain copper. Very exciting, and really just reaffirmed or revalidated the potential and scope of the project. Subsequent to that, more recently, in order to progress the feasibility at BKM, we completed a successful capital raising $8 million US at 4.3 pence, which we're very grateful. We were very well supported by. The stock immediately responded positively to that, and I haven't looked in the last few moments, but we are currently trading in excess of 5 pence. So a very good outcome. It really gives us some certainty in order to advance the BKM project through that feasibility process, and you'll see a whole suite of updates in relation to that from the period now through to the end of the calendar year, just keeping you informed as to where we're at. But it is progressing very well. We're very excited about it, and we'll keep moving ahead. One of the things, again, you would have heard Tony mention many times is that, particularly with BKM, it's surrounded by a whole suite of other potential projects which could well add to the initial 8/9 year mine life of the base case BKM project. There's a whole suite of things that we have to drill, and you will have noticed in the most recent RNS some commentary in relation to BKZ. So BKZ, unlike BKM, looks like a polymetallic project with some exceptional zinc grades in it, and we'll continue to drill through that and look at that as another potential option going forward. We're on about a 6-hole program, and we're just pushing through that at the minute. Yeah, so we've detailed that on slide 7 of the current presentation. So if you just have a little look at that in the bottom of slide 7, you'll see some of those new holes in BKZ. The other thing I'd like to draw your attention to is slide 10. We've talked about slide 10 many times before, but it does really illustrate the potential of this region. The rectangle that's in the centre right of the image is the BKM project, and that's where all of our activity and focus has been. But it's very illustrative to see that there's a lot of other sort of noise or potential in this immediate area. So we'll focus on BK West BK South, and of course continue with BKZ as we move forward around our core project BKM. Reminding you about BKM, it's shallow, it's very good grade, with very low strip ratios from the point of view of mining, with terrific recoveries. The preliminary economic assessment on BKM came up with a valuation of 200 million. So part of the purpose of this feasibility work is to verify and continue on the back of that work, so that when we move to the banking and financing phase, we can provide the supporting information. So perhaps with that, I'll just pause momentarily and maybe just open up for some questions, and then I can continue on.
Thank you, Peter. I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Richard Simon here. Hi, Peter. Thank you for your conference call here. Peter, I will cut straight to the chase for me, only because I, as an investor, did the original IPO at $1.75 Canadian. I've been buying the stock for 20 years and following it. You as a management team are extraordinary. The project is superlative. I cannot say enough. That being said, the disconnect between the stock price and, of course, we moved out of Canada because Canadians, North Americans are adverse to Indonesia as a country. We moved to the AIM strictly because of the receptivity of the AIM shareholders to Indonesia. So the key question here is simply, the disconnect is beyond appalling between the stock price and the potential of this project and what the science is telling us. This is an incredible project. It has immense economic value and potential, and yet the share price, as I say, the disconnect is appalling. So, as a shareholder, that is it.
Yeah, look, thank you.
There's nothing more important. That and liquidity. The liquidity's always been there on the AIM, and that, of course, was a big impetus to leave North America because it didn't trade. It trades, but how and when and will you address this?
Yeah, so no, thanks for your comments. Obviously, I'm relatively new to the organisation, and the price you're referring to is presumably Kalimantan gold, but part of our role in the next 3, 6 and 12 months is to continue to talk about the value of the project. We've seen in recent times a doubling of the share price, and I would fully expect as we continue to release information in relation to these projects, you'll see appreciation in the price. And as everyone is painfully aware, the resources sector is terribly cyclical. The good news is that we're moving out of that negative cycle and moving into a much more positive cycle. I think your point's well made, but I would also add that I think the value argument going forward is very, very strong, and I think you'll continue to see strong support as we move ahead. Hopefully that deals with your comment. Could I take another question?
Thank you, Peter.
Peter, it's for Alan here. Sorry, I just lost the call a little while back. I don't know whether it's been asked, but where do you see the copper price going in the next few years? Because your life of mine price in the PEA was $3.25, and if your life of mine is 8, 9, 10 years, what do you see it being an average price now over life of mine?
Yeah, so we've actually got a couple of slides in the slide pack, slides 4 and 5. Look, it's always dangerous to predict the price, but can I reaffirm the comment we made earlier? the market is a 22 million tonne per annum consumption market, growing at 2% compound per annum since the 1950s. Hence the comment I made that there's, if you like, 400,000 tonnes of new demand every year on top of the base level. In addition to which, we've all read about the demand that's going to go that's going to become in relation to the electric vehicle market. I think that it's not unrealistic to think that you're going to have a copper price in excess of that number you were mentioning, simply because there's very little in the way of new capacity coming online in the next few years. So there is going to be a supply deficit, and as we all sort of understand with sort of simple economics, demand exceeding supply is going to transfer into price increase. So I think we're pretty comfortable, getting back to with the 325 number that we had in our PEA. We're pretty comfortable that's not an overly bullish prediction.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps one more question, if there is one.
Yeah, Peter, back to Richard Simon. Gold, what about the gold prospects in BK West, BK South? Zinc looks very, very positive, of course, but what about gold? Do you see potential for gold credits?
Sure. No, good question. So as I mentioned earlier, the BKM project is our flagship project. And
right.
We're working very, very hard to move that through the feasibility, funding, development, operation. But sitting around BKM, as you've just pointed out, are a suite of other projects like Baroi, BK West, etc., which will need evaluating. So I think the answer to your question is, as we evaluate each one of these, we'll get a better understanding as to the mineral assemblage of each one, mineral endowment. We'll rank each of those projects from a priority point of view for exploitation. So you're right, we've got other commodity types in there that could well fold into the cash flow in the future, but the priority is to first of all, complete BKM in a structured way and then move on to each one systematically.
Right.
Another question. Oh, sorry.
Can you say a quick word about Butong? Butong?
Yeah, so I was going to move to Butong next, so perhaps if I could just talk about Butong and maybe that'll open up on a few other questions. So Butong, as we're all aware, is and we've got some slides in the slide pack towards. Perhaps if we could move the call just while I'm talking to less background noise. Okay, so slides 18 and 19, 20 in the slide pack talk about Butong. So just reminding everyone what Butong is. It's located in Western Sumatra. It's a very large porphyry system with an NI 43-101 resource of just under 2.5 million tonnes of contained copper, which is still open at depth and in a number of directions and needs further evaluation. We currently have a 40% equity position in Butong with the ability in time to move to 80%, and we'll evaluate that over time. What we're doing at the moment with Butong is seeking to convert, if you like, the leaseholding structure from what's called an exploration IUP to a production IUP. So we're working through that process. We've lodged all the relevant documents with the government, and clearly it's in their hands. We await a response, but we remain optimistic that we'll get a favourable outcome in relation to that in the near future. So if that be the case, one of the things we would certainly consider with respect to Butong is some additional drilling in that area. Just to remind you all of some of the sort of intersections we've had at Butong, they're fairly large, like 150 metres at 1.3% copper, 0.25 gold, 350 metres at 1% copper, 0.18% gold. So this is a very big project which we share with Media Group in Indonesia. We're very excited about it. Clearly, it's an elephant in comparison to BKM. So I would reiterate or stress that BKM is our immediate priority to get that executed. But sitting behind that, we have this very large project which has a lot of embedded value, which, getting back to an earlier comment before about value, it has not been well understood in the more general investor marketplace. So, it's incumbent upon us to continue to evaluate it and hence then subsequently talk about it.
Thank you, Peter.
Just a quick request. There's a lot of background noise. If you're in a noisy place, could you please mute your phone? That'd be much appreciated. Or Darren, if you can mute everyone, and then we'll just call for questions in the break.
Yeah, it's probably better that people individually mute, because otherwise I have to unmute everyone when someone wants to ask a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So look, perhaps with that, maybe I'll just open up for a couple more questions if there are any.
Hi, Peter. It's Steve here. I may have got this incorrect, but my understanding from early on was that with Butong, from an exploration license to a production license, as long as all the paperwork was put in, it was guaranteed. There was no wiggle room at all. It was just a straightforward process. Once you put in all the paperwork, it's a guaranteed outcome.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure of what you mean exactly, but I suppose from our perspective, what we are seeking to do is, as long as you fill out all of that paperwork correctly and provide all the correct information, I think your sort of general assumption is correct. So we've done all of that. Clearly, it's got to go into the government system for evaluation, be reviewed, checked off, and then we can move forward from there. So we await their response.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm not being alarmist about it at all. More the opposite, saying the work. Yeah, the work has all been done on our side of the ledger. But I reiterate the point, because it's such an exciting project, we're very keen to get on the ground and do a little bit of work on it as soon as we can. Could I ask, are there any more questions at this point in time?
I've got one more quick one, Peter, if I could. Is there any probability, given the scope of the projects, the size, scope, that you would break Asiamet up and spin off one or more of these areas and form separate companies? Let's say the zinc, for example, or even Butong.
There's been no discussion about that at this point in time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
The point is that if you take a high-level view of the portfolio of assets, we've got a project in BKM that's at the stage of detailed feasibility moving into production. It's surrounded by a suite of very high-quality exploration projects that require further work. And then you've got a very, very large project as in Butong in the portfolio, which is exceptional and requires more work. So at this point, our whole objective is to drive forward and illustrate, as Tony would say, daylight the value in these things before you did anything that sort of is value destructive. So I don't think at this stage we would be considering doing that.
Right.
Peter,
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter.
Peter, it's Alan again here, Peter. Can you just make a comment on what activities are taking place to secure more institutional investors on board besides JP?
Yeah. No, a good question. So I'm in the UK at the minute, and we'll be regular visitors to the UK. But clearly, as a company advances forward with its projects and it grows, a number of things happen. One is you become of a size that's of interest to the institutions, and you may well require their assistance from time to time to advance your project. So we've been active for some time, not just this trip, but for some time, interacting with those groupings to tell the story. So this is a relatively, I know this sounds odd to existing and long and loyal shareholders, but this is a relatively new story to those sorts of groupings. So, sometimes it's almost the first showing for a number of these institutional people, and you would meet them a number of times to give them a level of comfort that it is in fact a great story, and then you'll see over time they will begin to wade into the story.
Peter, hi, it's Johnny here. Could I just ask a quick question about Butong? In the previous presentation, there was a slide which showed the use of the proceeds from the last raise, and I think 1.7 million was earmarked for drilling and evaluation in Butong. Are you saying that the drilling's not going to be undertaken yet until the license is confirmed?
Well, I think there's a whole suite of things. I haven't got that slide in front of me, but I know the one you're referring to. There are a suite of things. There are a suite of things in relation to drilling that have to be done, and I think what I'm saying to you is we would be keen to get this conversion of license done initially, and then that will allow us to do a whole raft of things, including some drilling. No,
okay, great.
It's all positive. Yeah, it's all positive, I think is the answer. So, are there any additional questions, or would you like me to continue on?
Just one quick one, Peter, with respect to long-term debt funding, with respect to the mine itself. Has there been any initial conversations that should be held around that?
Look, with respect to with a feasibility process, there's sort of two sort of streams that occur in parallel. The first one is the one that we've talked about a lot, which is if you like, the technical elements of the feasibility. So, the evaluation, the checking, the design, engineering, all those sorts of things. So that's well underway. But in parallel with that, you begin to build out internally, your financial model. So that process is underway, and then at the appropriate time, you'll then start to liaise with potential investment with So the process is underway, is the answer to your question, but we're not specifically down the throats of the banks at this stage, but it's part of the journey as we advance. Perhaps, is there another question, or would you like me to wind up, guys?
Yeah, move on, Peter, please.
Okay, not a problem. So look, everybody, the purpose of today was just a quick update on where we're at, and hopefully I've left you with a few bullet points. One being is the BKM feasibility is advancing as planned and going well, so we're very pleased about that. The second thing is that we've started to evaluate some of those satellite projects around BKM, and you've seen some really quite interesting results. For example, BKZ, which is terribly exciting. We continue to push forward more generally at the corporate level with some refinements. There was some reference earlier to not being in Canada anymore. We've actually re-domiciled some of our function in the UK, aligning with the AIM listing. We've established a small corporate team in Australia to coordinate the feasibility process, which, as I said, is going ahead at a pace. So we've got a very sort of systematic approach moving forward. There's BKM and then a pipeline of projects sitting behind that, these satellites, Butong, and we'll just continue to work through each of those very systematically. As a result of that, what you will see from the period now through till Christmas is a fairly high degree of news flow that'll come out of the back of the study, out of evaluation of these projects and work activities to date. So we're very excited about where Asiamet's at. We're really pleased with how the share price has performed post the capital raising, and we were incredibly grateful in relation to capital raising of the good support. So we'll continue to work away diligently, just driving every day for value generation for the shareholders. I think what's fantastic is that the copper market is in a very good space. We continue to believe that, and it does relate to a question earlier, that we're probably in a pretty strong copper environment. So I think you'll see increasing levels of interest in the company from the institutions, the larger brokers, and the general sort of, if you like, media fraternity following the story. So we'll just push on and keep you updated as time goes on. Yeah, so if there are any questions as a follow-up, please come through to Sasha, and we can, if there's questions we haven't answered, I apologise. We'll do that indirectly subsequent to this.
Yeah, thanks. That's just because Pete has a pretty heavy schedule this week, so I'm here to support him with that, as always. Most of you know me anyway. So, look, we probably have to wrap up now because I've got to shoot off to the city for another round of couple of meetings. But listen, thanks everyone for joining the call. And, just get in touch with any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye.
Cheers.